Hey guys, Cam from Inky Knuckles here, coming at you on our now mostly regular Wednesday show. We've been trying to do a more artist-focused Wednesday show with Mr. Troy Nixey hosting, and me just kind of hanging out in the background and listening to some really great artist banter. And tonight we have a very special guest, my new favorite comic artist, Mr. Al Gofa. Al came to us fairly recently, and in all honesty, I wasn't as familiar with Al's work as some of our other artists, but I credit Mr. Troy Nixey and Mr. Alexis Zirit for getting me onto Al's work, and I'm very thankful for that. But without further ado, Mr. Troy Nixey and Mr. Al Gofa, how are you guys doing?
Very well. Look at how clean cut and young Al is. Those are the days.
I missed the memo for going to the barbershop before the live show.
Well, I guess
if I look like you in the future, I'll be pretty happy.
Yes, mine's a little long actually, but I didn't have time to buzz it tonight. So, but you work with what you got.
No, well. Thanks for coming on, guys. Al, thanks for hopping on. Thanks for joining the crew. As I mentioned just at the start, Troy and Alexis told me about you and your work, and they were very adamant about how awesome of a comic artist you were. So that'll be our segue into Troy, speaking towards Al's work a little bit.
And it makes sense too. When we were talking to Alexis last week, that he would be a big fan of yours, because I think that the both of you kind of live in the same universe. There's just a lot of sort of insane energy in your work, and like just really leaning into your work that makes me really excited when I look at both of your guys' comics. And I think I ran across you on Instagram originally on my old account. I used to have an old account. And so I was very happy to finally get my hands on your first big book. You said you have a self-published comic as well, but this is your first book with a publisher that wasn't you. And it's amazing. And so I'm going to let you describe what this book is, because I would completely muddle it up. But it was definitely one of my favorite books of last year. I blew through it. I'm usually really slow when I read comics, and I put them down, pick them up, or put them down, pick them up. But I read yours straight through. It was amazing. And so tell us what it's about, because I would totally screw it up.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to comment about what you said about me and Alexis. I agree, and I like that comparison, because I feel we're both like kind of descendants of artists like Paul Pope, and Paul Pope was really into rock and roll, and also Jack Kirby. And I feel like there is this thing where like I was really into heavy metal, like Metallica, the French comic book artist from the 70s, Moebius now. And I feel that in Paul Pope and Alexis too. So there's this like raw energy, but like superhero. So it's kind of like rock and roll, rock films, and like Captain America, and like so I feel there's a bit of that in both of our work.
Well, for sure, and I definitely was going to touch on that too, because I feel a lot of music in the influence in Alexis's work as well as yours. Like, sometimes you read a creator's work and you can just tell that you really, really, really like music. and I'm sure that's true of you as well. Like, you're wearing your musical influences on your writing hand while you're working.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, Dark Angel of Darkness, I was pretty much listening to the album Warrior of the Edge of Time by Hawkwind.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like it's all the writer Moonrock, Moonrock. Do I say it right?
I'm not sure. I'm unfamiliar.
Are
you looking him up?
Yeah. Anyway, he's a fantasy writer from like the 60s and 70s, and he did this whole album based on his writing. So it just
Moorcock. Are you talking about Moorcock?
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't read him. I'm not familiar to him, but I really like the album they made out of his writing. And,
yeah, he did. He created
so it's very
Elric.
epic.
Yes,
Sorry.
he created Elric.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that, because like with this book, like it kind of straddles going back and forth from feeling quite serious and then just being really screwball and wacky, and just the concept of it. And this is why I wanted you to talk on it, in terms of just what the idea is behind it, because it's so unique and original, and still playing with superhero tropes, but doing completely your own thing with it.
Yeah, well, when I did my first self-published comic, I didn't know what I was doing, and I ended up making it silent. And pretty much it was all tonal, like the motivation that I had in visual. And when I did Dark Angel of Darkness, I was pretty much at the same point, but I wanted more, so I started writing and like developing about the characters. But I didn't know what I wanted from it. I didn't know myself as a writer yet. And at first I thought I would do like a style exercise, like more like something like Moebius would do, just like, oh, I'm discovering this funny story out of nowhere, like stuff like that. And but I eventually end up finding myself wanted to conclude with my characters and wanted to like be like something more conservative in terms of storytelling. So it's kind of on the edge of both sides. But I think it's like, first it was necessary that I do it that way. I couldn't have done it otherwise. But I actually like it. I think it's fun to have something that's as energetic and as free, but also is playing with tropes that everybody knows and symbols that everybody knows. Yeah.
Well, and that's fine, because when you do work with something that everyone is familiar with, it's easier as a creative, I find anyways, to sort of really push those tropes because people understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And so like when Kari and I did the Black Sinister, for instance, we were doing that too. And not everyone understood what we're doing, but we're definitely doing satire. And it's really fun, kind of making fun of that stuff that we read growing up.
Yeah.
But still being respectful of it, but very sort of tongue-in-cheek kind of, it's like, oh, we can have some fun with this stuff. And certainly Dark Angels of Darkness does that. Yeah. Just this concept that two characters combining to create a bigger force, like to be more, super heroic as a result of them coming together, like literally coming together and becoming a bigger massive entity. Is I loved it. It was just so fun. Immediately it pulls you in, and just sort of the journey that it takes. And like I say, like it kind of feels serious sometimes, but clearly it's not. Like you're making fun, you're having fun, but not ridiculing or anything like that. Like there's a lot of respect behind it as well. And and so when you did your first book and it was silent, which to me would feel like it was more problematic as a first-time comic creator, having to tell a story with just visuals and not relying either on captions or dialogue. What was your thinking behind that? Was it just you sort of experimenting and finding the kind of stuff you wanted to do?
My only motivation were like drawings first. So when it was time to like make them say something, I just like they were just saying like crap and like silly things.
Yeah.
Which actually is the case in Dark Angel of Darkness practically.
Yes.
It works. But I wasn't confident to do it at first. But now I'm happy to make them say silly things. But I guess you're right. Like you can like writing can help you in telling a story, but it's never been the kind of story I've been aiming to. Like there's not like my content. If I have a content, would be either visual or more like psychological. So it's more about like how your character reacts more than what he says. So you can pretty much say anything. Like It doesn't have to be like a big scientifical like mythology or whatever.
Not at all. Yeah. Well, and some of the best stuff is, like, I always say that if your character is saying something, if they stay true to who they are as a character, and their explanation is they're coming at it in a very forthright manner, it literally doesn't matter what they say; it's how they're saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can say the most asinine, ridiculous, crazy things, but if they're saying it emphatically, then it's true. And that's all the reader. That's all the reader needs to. They don't need to know what it means. They just need to know that he knows what it means.
Yeah, totally.
And so with this one, this one is still available. We were just talking about this before Cam started. So this is available through your website still. And so, are you still keeping it in print? Like, is this something that will always exist, or will it feature in another book down the road, a collection, or?
Good question. I never thought about it, but I still have like 150 copies. So I'm like,
oh, okay.
Not press yet. Yeah. But yeah, I guess it will be done after. Like, it will be this thing that like you have to search for it. So.
Well, that's cool. It's like an artifact. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so, and this is what I always say, and I was saying this a little while ago, that because there's a lot of discussion about breaking into comics and and how it's done, and I hold firm on the stand that if you make comics, you're in comics. There's no perfect way, there's no magic words or secret handshake for getting into comics. So like, you just took the initiative on yourself to, this is what I want to do. I'm going to create a book. I'm going to self-publish it. You're in the industry as much as anyone else is in the industry. If you create work, you're creating comics, you're in comics. And so was that initial push for you to self-publish, was it just the easiest way in for you? Like, you're like, oh, I don't want to submit to publishers. I have an idea. I want to explore something, and I'm just going to put it out myself. Was that always the plan, to put it out yourself?
It's actually a good question and a really good subject. Like, yeah, I love that subject actually, because I've been wondering about it my whole life. Like I have the same question as everyone. How do you break into comics? I don't know. I just always drew, and like a lot, and I wasn't sure what I was about to do. Like I wanted to be a filmmaker like everyone, and like an illustrator, maybe a painter. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at one point you start doing something more, and I started doing just more comics, and I got a job in a comic book store, so I started to be like a lot more geeky about it.
Yeah.
I started meeting other comic book artists. They were telling me, you should do a comic, you're pretty good. And like, so I started doing it, but I got a tendonitis, and I got it for 3 years. Couldn't draw for 3 years. And I tried really, but it was just too big a tendonitis. But eventually I healed up from it, and I was like, okay, now I have to do a comic. So I did a Chevalier Bataille, my first comic. And at that point, I wasn't really thinking about the industry. I was thinking like, I have to do something for myself, because I feel like I've been doing nothing for like 3 years. Like,
yeah.
And before that, I was also kind of like turning around, wondering what I would do with my life. So at that point, I was just like, comics would break you.
Oh, Alexis, it's not true.
Well, it does a bit, but I think it's good to get broken and like build up from it.
I mean, but we bring it on ourselves a lot of the time too. I mean, I think that it does take a certain kind of personality to be able to do this, because you are, for the most part, just working in isolation, and a majority of the time you have to be your own editor, you have to be your own everything, and you just have to trust your own judgment to sit down every day and just work, like just put images together to hopefully make something. And so, and that's what we get back to the idea of breaking into comics, and that's kind of it, is that breaking into comics is just discipline and motivation. And if you can do it, if you can sit your ass down and make stuff, then you're in comics. It's the same as music. Like, you don't need, you can just sit down and you can record on a whatever, just you playing guitar. That's why I think music and comics are actually quite, a really close in terms of making the product, the work.
Well, I agree with you totally. It's just that I think when people say break into comics, they mean like being popular and having a lot of money, I guess. And with
there's three people that have that.
Yeah. But yeah, I did realize by doing comics that like I was kind of in comics because like all my favorite artists like wrote to me to tell me they like my work. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm a comic book artist. Like
yeah. And it's because what really drew me to you when I initially saw your work, and my good friend Ben was the one that tracked you down at TCAF to get my copy.
Oh, okay. I remember. He wrote me. Yeah, I remember.
Because I think I was writing you through your Tumblr or something. I can't even remember how I was getting a hold of you, and I was like, I don't know if he's getting these messages or not, but I want one of those books. But they're like, because I always am attracted to creators who really lean into what they enjoy doing and have a really unique and original voice. And so I think Alexis is a lot like that too. Is just like he's really leaning into what he really wants to do, and that's super clear with you. It took me a really long time to figure out what I wanted to do, but like you just came, swinging out of the gates. Like it seemed to like you had a pretty clear notion of the types of characters and everything that you wanted to do. How did that happen for you so early? It usually doesn't happen for people so early.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Well, I'm actually like, it's funny. Like, I'm 30 right now, and it's been like I've been caring about being serious about drawing like since I'm like 20 maybe. Like,
yeah,
I start to be like that. I start to feel pressure and like, oh, I have to be good and like have to do this and I have to change my life and to be able to work every day and like so. Obviously, didn't happen like the first year. It took a long time, but I think for the first time in my life, I actually enjoy my work. Like, not too much. Like, I won't enjoy it 100%. Like, have to be difficult about it. But
yeah,
like that, I enjoy it enough so I don't like. I'm actually happy about it. Like, I think last year I was unhappy. Like, I was like, no, this is not good enough. This is not what I want.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is a constant conversation. This has been a conversation that existed. Like I broke into comics in 1991, and so this conversation was going then, and I know it existed before. And there's sort of two groups of thought that you like. The people like really stress that you can't enjoy whatever. Alexis, you totally know what you're doing. You can't enjoy your work. Like, you have to be so critical. There's people that are like, oh, working is just so painful. And to that, I say, well, then why are you doing it? Like, if it causes you that much distress, then why are you doing this? I really enjoy what I do. I'm very hypercritical of what I do, but I really enjoy it. I mean, there's some days that, it's awful, but for the vast majority of it, I really enjoy it. Would you say the same for yourself? Like, you're just saying, like, you enjoy the process of creating.
Well, earlier we talked about the personality, and like I realized that I was like I needed comic books or like anything that would be close to it more than like other profession, even creative profession like video game design or filmmakers or like I couldn't do it because like first I need to be alone, and second like I really need the how do you call that? I need there's a meditative aspect to drawing.
Yeah.
There's also like it's kind of like a sport. Like you can always like get more stronger and more flexible and faster. And I need that aspect, that competitive, but just alone. I realized that if actually I wasn't like an artist, I would totally do sport for a living. Or like, there's like so to be alone and like to think about how to build this and how to improve is like just like necessary for me. Like so the personality aspect makes drawing good for me.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that like I actually enjoy every aspect of it. Sometimes it's really hard, but like I couldn't live otherwise anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the flip side of it. There's so many of us that you ask them, it's like, well, if you weren't doing this, what would you do? And so many of us like, I don't know. I have no
Exactly.
idea. I always make a joke that I would work in the box factory, but
Yeah.
it's like, I have no clue. No clue what I
Yeah,
would
totally.
do.
I wouldn't know what I'd be doing.
So, but you are a big sports guy because that sort of was the longest conversation we had, sort of up until now, was we started talking about the Jordan documentary, and
Yeah.
and my girlfriend was wondering who the heck I was talking to on the couch because I was just like on my phone, but
My girlfriend too. I was like, who are you talking to?
just a guy. But sports, I mean, I'm a big football guy. I've been a big NFL fan since I was 12. I like the distraction of it. I like that it has nothing to do with my work, so I can actually turn off work when I'm watching football. Is it sort of the same with you in basketball, or?
It's interesting. Actually, I didn't think about it, but I do have that aspect in my life. But I always been doing sport, but I wasn't following sport, and I started watching the NBA last year. I started watching like the history of it, like Michael Jordan, Larry
Yeah.
Bird, like Chamberlain, all that stuff, old games. And then just when I started watching live games, it was the Raptors. They were like winning. I was like, oh shit, what a good timing
Yeah.
for an NBA fan. And so that really got me into it. And then like now this year, I've been like watching news and highlights and like stuff about NBA every day. And it became this thing where like it's just my way to take off work and my life. Like, but at first it was more like an actual obsession, and now it
Yeah.
became like, yeah, it just felt nice and calm.
Well, and for me, it was always, because I'm sure you're the same. You're always processing, work is never ending. It's just a continuation of ideas that, you either tackle them and it becomes something, or an idea morphs into something and you kind of move it down the line until it either sticks somewhere or it just kind of floats off. But with sports, I love the finality of it. Someone wins, someone loses, and because the creative life is never like that. I mean, for you, when you finished your self-published book, I imagine there was a sense of sort of relief and satisfaction, but I'm sure that your next project had already been bubbling while you were working on that one.
Yeah,
Is it true?
Yeah, you always have like 5 projects in your head, like taking notes and like, yeah, it can get some. What I'm learning from doing big books is I should do shorter books, so like my head can get clearer faster.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that before. So, do you want to talk about the new book that you're on? Because you said you're like 140 pages into it now, which makes me very excited. And you're thinking it's about 200, but you're not 100. You're not totally sure. But
yeah, I like it to be about 200, like maximum. I think I can do it, but I can't guarantee it because, like Dark Angel of Darkness, I didn't know what I wanted from it in terms of writing. I just knew a vibe and like some drawing ideas. And and the problem is that I like to create new characters visually. So like I will start a story with like 20 characters. But then I'm like, the writer in me is like, yeah, but I have to conclude with him. I cannot just drop him like in the middle. And like, so it gets complicated.
So let's talk about your writing process then. See, Alexis might as well just be on this call. Why he's clearly watching.
Yeah.
Alexis, just sign in. Cam, send him a link. So let's talk about your writing process, because it seems to be a moving one.
Yeah.
I like to I like to have the story pretty locked in, so like I feel confident going in. If I need to change it, I can, but I definitely know where it ends. I always know where it ends. But with you, it seems like it's more organic. So how do you go about it? Like, do you write very broadly, like work from a small plot? How does it work?
Simon, hi
Simon.
Well, actually, it's funny. My writing process actually changed a lot in the last months, but I'll talk about the process I've been doing for Backstab and Dark Angel of Darkness, and then I'll talk about my new process. So yeah, I start, like I said, with Chevalier Bataille more as I came as an artist, and I didn't know myself as a writer. So it was more about tone and drawing, and but ultimately, like, I wanted to write something, so I had to find a way to draw that is open to my writing, that I don't know what it is, and that is also answering at least all what I want to draw. So it's pretty much just I jump like blind, like in a water pool. Like I've been hitting walls like for a year and a half. It's just paint myself in a corner and like, how do I get away of this corner? It was pretty painful, because it's not just like, oh, that's how I'm gonna do that page, that's nice. No, it's like, is that drawing like fucking up my old comic or not? I don't remember. Okay, I have to go back all my other page. Okay, yes, it works. And it's just like, so it gets like a lot of information, like it can be like overload. So I wouldn't recommend it in terms of like practical for if you want like a practical process, but in terms of finding yourself, like it was totally like, I don't regret it, and I think it was necessary, because like otherwise I would be writing like cliches, and I guess like let's say I'm not a comic book artist, I'm a novelist. What do? I start writing, like I don't know where I'm going, like and then ultimately like one day I might find tricks and like write a book and know where I'm going. It's like when we start drawing when we're a kid, we're just like, I'm just drawing a Power Rangers, but like maybe in 30 years it will be a comic book, but for now it's just a Power Ranger. Like so.
Well, and like the idea that there is no right or wrong way to make comics. I'm sure some people would completely disagree with me on that, but I would say that those that think that there is only one way to make comics probably make pretty stale comics, and so it's interesting that it's almost like you're painting. You're going in and you're reworking things, and it's like, okay, I'll leave that area alone for now, and it's like, go over here, now I got to come back because now I've adjusted this, and I love that sort of organic way that you're flowing back and forth. My brain doesn't work like that at all. I wish it did.
Mine too. It was just like really hell. Like,
do you bounce things off of anyone as you're working? Like, do you have some peers that are like, is this making sense or no? Or you just trust your instinct?
A bit, but I mostly trust my instinct, because I'm like, it's hard for them to understand what's going on, because like they're just entering into an unfinished painting and they don't know what I want, and I barely know what I want. So, when I did Dark Angel of Darkness, so I had two friends that are both comic book artists who were really helpful, but yeah, there was a limit to how they could help me, because it was just so ununderstandable. So yeah.
Well, and two, I guess sometimes it's just sort of comforting to have peers that you trust to go, no, this is really cool. I don't quite get it yet, but just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice because like we were saying, like you work in a vacuum, you work by yourself, and you're just so here in front of you. It's nice to be able to take a step back and then have friends go, oh yeah, no, that's really awesome.
Well, yeah, totally. And I was saying I wish to do shorter comics next, because like, when Dark Angel of Darkness came out, there was that a bit, like when people said, oh, it's good. I was so relieved. I was like, oh, crap. And like I know that some people didn't like it. I was going on websites seeing reviews, and some people were like, this is bullshit. But like it's normal first, but they also, what they didn't like about it, I was like, oh, I kind of agree with them too. It's just like, my book isn't perfect, and like that's interesting. But like at least there were a lot of people who thought it was worth it to read it. So I was just like, okay, good.
Oh, it is. It's amazing, and like you'll find, I think too, a lot of other creative people. A lot of other cartoonists who really, really dig it, because it is just, when you read a work, and sometimes you're like, oh, you get a read on what a creator's personality is, and it doesn't happen very often, but like reading that, you're like, I think you get a sense of Like, what makes you tick? Like, what makes you excited about being creative? Because you just unabashedly put everything, I think, anyways, that you love in your book. Because you always sort of challenge people, because they might be chasing trends or what they think they should be doing rather than what they really should be doing. And so you always sort of challenge a young person when they come up and they're like, can I show you my work? And you're like, well, let me see your sketchbook. Because their sketchbook is always full of the stuff they really want to be doing, and it rarely matches the comic pages they show you. But I bet if we looked at your sketchbook, it would be like this stuff.
Yeah.
Like this is the
it's
stuff
kinda
you're
like-
sketching.
Yeah, well, like, it's weird to like my book when I look at it. Like, I don't look at it often, but I'm actually excited about it. I like, oh, this is what I want to see in a comic book. It's like, so yeah.
So are you drawing for so are you creating for yourself? Like I create for younger versions of me. That's who I do my books for. Are you the same way?
Yeah, well, there's that too. It's like when we're young, we're unable to like make things.
Yeah.
So it's like we give ourselves homeworks to the older us version of us. Like, when you'll be that age, able to do that, you should do that. They're like, so sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh, I have to do a Power Rangers comics, and it's like it's not happening. But like, maybe I'll do it one day.
Well, but I mean, there's aspects of Power Rangers in your work, though. Like, you can see it sprinkled in there.
Yeah, but it could be a bit more. Like, it could be like a bunch of teenagers in some kind of military school and like whatever.
Did you watch the recent Power Rangers movie?
Yeah, I did, but I shouldn't have done that.
I was on a bus, so I didn't have and they were showing a movie on a bus. I was traveling between where I live and where my parents live, and they just showed the Power Rangers movie on the bus. And so, I mean, when I'm trapped like that, I will watch terrible movies because, it's not like I'm wasting time. I'm traveling. What are you going to do? And so I watched it, and it was fine for a bus movie. That's
okay, good. You should make a critique, really good bus movie.
Yes. You can put that on all the DVD cases.
Yeah.
So you weren't a big fan, then, I take it?
Well, I'm very difficult with blockbusters. I'm just like, I think like I could depress someone about it.
Yeah. Well, most of them aren't very good.
Yeah, no, I'm not the public credit.
So what are you consuming then? Like, what sort of gets you excited? Are you reading a lot? Do you watch a lot of movies?
Yeah. In terms of storytelling, it will be mostly movies. But I watch comic books all the time because like the arts, like I always been like in like painting, so I always been watching a lot of art, graphic design. That's like my main consummation. But I do watch like maybe 2-3 things a movie a week. I'm a big fan of like Howard Hawks. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
That's interesting. What's the draw? What's the draw to his stuff?
It's his storytelling. His structure is mostly just. It's mostly just about like how people discuss together and like. And it's like these characters are like people that don't really understand one another. So it's about miscommunication. It's about like it's anti-dramatic pretty much. There's no drama to it. Like there might be some drama because they're associated to dramatic genre. Like Rio Bravo will have like criminals, but like they're not really important. And like it's more a movie about John Wayne talking to a drunk and like so. But like also he's a funny guy. Like Howard Hawks' films are funny. Like the characters are kind of like clumsy, and so to me it's like if Dragon Ball was like better written. That's what Howard Hawks.
Oh, interesting.
A bunch of like manly, clumsy guys like having a laugh about everyday life, but they have guns, but they never use it. And
it's interesting because I haven't watched any of his work for a really long time, and now I need to go back and revisit it. I tend to, especially when especially when I'm sort of stuck, I'll always go back to sort of the same stuff. Like I watched The Big Lebowski again the other night for probably the 10th time. I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan, so they'll always get me excited about storytelling again.
Yeah, they're really smart. They're probably some of the best active American filmmakers. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So what other stuff you like? It's interesting. You're a big movie guy. Not all comic creators are.
Well, most comic book creators are into film, but they're like into the visual of film. They will talk about photo direction or concept art, which makes sense. They're visual artists. But yeah, I think there's a it's true. They might be less into the storytelling aspect of films. Yeah, I really love. It's hard to apply it in comics, but I'm I'm trying to theorize how I can apply it to comics. But I really like Mike Lee. You know Mike Lee?
No.
He's a British filmmaker, and how he does his films is that like he creates different characters with the actors, and he inform them and write with them the characters, and then put them in scenes, and they create the dialogue themselves by interacting with one another and playing the character that they are.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a few other directors that are like that too. Like they might have like a 20-page outline kind of thing, and they just work from that.
And it just makes really like naturalistic films. Like the people talk like your neighbors would talk, and usually like in terms of moral, it's less ideologistic. It's more like about real life. It's more gray, like because like the people they don't have like a drama to deal with. They're kind of just like, oh, I'm a drunk, and oh, I'm a sad wife, and like they have to hang out and talk. And so I'm trying to see how I can do that as a comic book artist, but the problem is I'm alone. I don't have 10 actors.
Yes. So have you wanted to, like, there was a point where you wanted to try directing, like to pursue directing, or?
Not seriously, because like I did study a bit film at university, but I was young and I was just trying everything. But since
okay.
I've been like older and maybe like more able, I've got really into comics, and I'm pretty happy doing that. So. Yeah.
Well, the freedom of comics is undeniable. It's amazing that there's no concerns of budget, there's no concerns of casting, availability, this, that, and the other thing. It's literally just what you're willing to spend your time on, and that's why I think they're so incredible. You can read a book like Dark Angels of Darkness, and it is such a singular voice. And I mean, I did some movie stuff, and I loved it. I loved the collaborative nature of it, and working with other really talented people to create sort of a single vision at the end of the day on the screen. But nothing beats comics. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, also I think like comics is a young medium too. Like maybe it's actually came out at the same time as film, but I feel like film there were more money put into it, and ultimately it evolved faster. I feel like comics there's still a lot of things we can do with it, and that is inspiring to think there's like, because in films like all my favorite films are made already. I'm just like, oh well, why would I do film? They're already good. Like comics is like, there's a few things I want to see, and like, so I have to do it.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just that just brought something to mind with exactly what you just said, because I write comics occasionally, and I seek out collaborators. And Alexis, a long time ago, probably doesn't remember it, but I reached out to him about working together. What are his rates? Can I get you to draw my comic? Blah blah blah. This is years ago, probably 8 or 9 years ago. But like the two of you and Alexis are so much creating your own worlds that as a creative and collaborator, I don't feel like I could add anything as a collaborator with you three specifically, because it's so much, you guys create your own worlds, and your own books are very much your own. Similar to kind of what you just said, Al, you don't think the movies you like have been made, you don't think you can add anything to it.
Yeah.
But that just kind of sparked that. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Obviously, creating to create what you want to create is, kind of the dream. But in terms of collaboration with other writers, and is the preference always I want to do my thing, with all the chips on the table, at the end of the day, that's what you want to do? Or do you approach it as, I would love to work with this guy, whether it's another artist, another colorist, or a writer? Just wanted to pose that question to you guys, because if Alexis was on here too, I think it's a really unique conversation for the three of you, because you guys are very unique in what you do, and you do your own world really well. So that's just a question I wanted to pose to both of you.
Al, take it away.
Yeah, sure. I actually like that question. Well, of course, like I think like my own thing is first, because I naturally did it, and I didn't look for like collaborations really. But I love comic books so much, and collaboration is part of the history of comic books. So there's something where like I'd be curious to like try that aspect. Like I kind of want to do a collaboration as much as I want to do a Nato bio and like draw it in 1 week. Like I want to do like everything a comic has been, like see my own version of it. So yeah, I love to do like any collaboration if it fits into some of my fantasies I have in comic book history, and like
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
like yeah.
Have you chatted with anyone about collaborating yet, or are you just really focused on your work?
I did chat, but ultimately, like I think, like unconsciously, I was not ready for it, and I'm still like I have a lot of my own things to do first. Like have like so many ideas, I want to prove myself able to do them, but yeah, ultimately one day I'm sure I'm gonna collaborate with people and like try different things. It's a good way also to like kind of quit what you're used to. So it's like I think it's interesting.
Well, and it's interesting too, because and I've certainly done both, and really appreciate both, and still doing both now. I'm talking to a couple people about working on something at the same time that I'm writing. Like I got my sketchbook right here for something that is just all mine, and it's kind of fun to go back and forth and sort of find what you can give up and what you're willing to give up to someone else in terms of a writer. It's cool because they bring something else to the table, and and it's usually just two of you, and you're sort of working off one another and really pushing yourselves. And like the Black Sinister, again, it's a good example with Kari, is that I brought sort of a small idea to him, and then he made it. I always joke that he Michael Bay'd it. Like he made it into this big, huge, crazy, nonsense, bizarre thing, and he made it so much better as a result, from my small idea. And so generally, I think my best collaborations have been with writers who also draw. And I think it's just easier to understand every aspect of comics, but it's not always the case. You work with writers who are just writers who don't draw that, and it works really well too. I do prefer my own stuff. It is harder for me. You're doing all the heavy lifting. There's no one there to help you lift the other end of the couch. You got to lift the whole damn thing yourself.
Yeah, it feels like, I don't know if I'm wrong. I'm asking you, Troy, but like it feels like doing it on your own is not twice more work than working with somebody else. It's like it's a lot heavier. Like
it's not like you're doing twice as much. It's just it is just heavier. Like it's just more dense. Like there's just more to work through, but it doesn't feel like it's twice as much. So because even when you're working with a writer, you still are visually interpreting the words on the paper, or if it's like a full script or just a plot or whatever. So there's all that same amount of work there, and dialogue might go back and forth between the two of you. So it's kind of more shared. But yeah, I don't see it as doing twice as much work like you're suggesting, Al. But it's fun and it's interesting, and like I'm sure, Al, that you'll get to a point, because I'm sure that with how you draw and how dynamic you are, that writers are just going to continually be reaching out to you to work together, as you get more work out there and your work is seen more. So there'll become a point where someone really cool comes along and you're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's tackle this.
Guys, and just while we're kind of on this topic of collaboration and doing your own thing, we just have a question that just posed to both you guys about sustainability of creating on your own, or is there a big publisher, whether and not even necessarily big too, I think I know what Ron's asking, but just Dark Horse Image, someone like that, is that a necessity? And I know there's lots of angles to this, but if you guys wanted to just kind of touch on that, how you feel about that. And Troy, you actually answered this question I think we spoke about it with Alexis last week a little bit about the sustainability of creating your own stuff. But yeah, if you guys wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to go, Troy, or?
No, go ahead, Al.
Okay. Well, it's there's a lot of things I heard that they're not my own experience, and I try to conclude things from it, but I don't think it would be interesting to hear them from me. But ultimately, my own personal experience is I had to have a side job, and it was an art, because I was doing things doing my own things was it was mainly because I couldn't do other people's things.
Mm-hmm.
I just it made me depressed doing other people's things. But ultimately, I think it's because I wasn't confident enough as an author and as an artist. Now that I know myself more, I'm less scared to lose myself. So I would be more open to do things that are farther away from me. And right now I'm starting to slowly make a living. And ultimately, the opportunities I get are not directly comics, but they're related to it. Like Inky Knuckles, that would be a great opportunity for me, and that will help me having to work less in a coffee shop. And so I think if you really need to do your own thing, in a way, there's no other choice. And ultimately, there's it wasn't a bad life. I'm pretty happy to have done all this, and yeah, and I'm actually very confident that I will be making a living doing my own thing eventually. And all my favorite artists are artists that have been doing their own thing and making a living at it. So I think it exists and it works. It's just, I guess it's harder because people are less used to your thing because they haven't seen it yet or something. But yeah.
And just to comment on that, it's a great opportunity for us as well. You joining us, so it's a mutual thing.
Cool. Sure. I'm pretty excited about it. But.
We were campaigning for you, so. Well, from my end, because I've been at this for almost 30 years now, and which is crazy to think about. And I think that to survive that long and not doing mainstream stuff, say Marvel or DC. I mean, I did a DC project years and years and years ago. You just have to be really creative and adaptable, and you always have to be looking ahead. I always give focus on what I'm working on, but you need to be looking ahead. You need to be sort of lining up what the next thing is going to be, and so you have to be a bit of a salesperson in that regard. And I've been really lucky with Dark Horse. It doesn't look like, beyond this collection of sort of short stories and stuff that may or may not be coming out yet. We don't know because it was indefinitely delayed because of COVID. That I don't know what kind of future I'll have with them moving forward as a publisher. Things changed over there, so the page rates changed, and I was supposed to be working on this big monster project right now. It was going to be my 2020 project, and just before it was about to start, it went away. And no, I'm not pointing fingers. It's just, the reality of the business of comics. It isn't the first time I've had stuff canceled. And it just really happened at a good time that things coincided with Cam, where commissions really started to take off for me, knock wood. And so it actually opened up a new door for me in regards to comics, because now I have commissions coming in and sort of finding a new gear of creativity and approach with those, which then allowed me to think about doing comic projects that maybe weren't as what I perceived as widely acceptable, to a big audience, and just like I said earlier, like really leaning into what I want to do. And so with the project that I'm working on now, it is really weird and it's so much fun. And the commissions are allowing me to do that. I don't have a part-time job. It's this, or I figure something else that I can do sitting at my desk. So yeah, you just have to be adaptable. And I'm really lucky. My partner, she's super supportive. So she understands the hours that I have to put in to get stuff done sometimes. It's Wednesday night, 9:00 here, and I'm talking with you guys, not hanging out with her. And she knows, she understands, and so I'm definitely lucky in that regard. And yeah, it's just, it never ends. I think that there's this belief that some people have that once you work for a company at a certain level, that things just kind of keep rolling. And I tell people, it's like, I can't remember the last time an editor has reached out to me for work to see if I'm interested in something. And I can count the number of times that they have in my entire career on one hand. I've always made my own stuff, and it's just, you're sort of doing the soft shoe dance, selling it. And that's just what is, that's just part of the job.
Awesome.
Yeah. I hear a kitty cat. Is that your cat, Al?
Yeah, I'll get it out.
I heard a very soft meow. It was like, on that note.
That was me, Troy.
What?
That was me meowing.
Yeah, but that's what I'm kind of realizing. I think the misconception people have, and that I had myself, is that, like, well, first we base our dreams, we have them when we're kids. So we understand, like, our future career when we're kids. And, like, this will probably change. Like, it has to change. So it's like, I'm gonna be like Walt Disney. That was my career plan.
Oh yeah.
So ultimately, I realized it wasn't possible, and it wasn't necessarily the reality I wanted, actually. And so yeah, I think like actually Inky Knuckles for me, it was kind of like a mind changing, mind opening opportunity for me. It was like, I actually love doing that, and I didn't know I actually loved doing that. Somehow the way I was consuming art didn't make me notice that there was like a way of making money that way. Like, I didn't realize it, so I didn't really try it. But then it happened, and it's like, oh, this might be a new aspect in my life. And so yeah, you have to be open and flexible for sure.
Yeah, it's, if you just sort of say it's one way or no way, then it's almost inevitably going to end up no way, and you'll be on the outside looking in, going, "Well, what happened?" And it's like, "Well, you weren't adaptable."
Yeah, and I guess like I can understand that to be unadaptable, because you don't want to lose yourself either. You don't want to make bad choices. But like there's like a middle area, I guess. Like the idea is not to like say yes to everything, but like to like just like try a bit different.
Yeah, it's good. Like, and it's interesting too, because I think that as the industry shifts in terms of comics, especially with what happened with Diamond recently, having a lot of conversations with creators, and creators that have been around a while, the fact that Diamond just said, "Oh, well, we're not taking any books anymore," and that just shut everything down. It sort of was really eye-opening for a lot of us. And you see more and more creators who are cutting out Diamond completely and just marketing directly to their fans. and doing really well. You see it on Patreon, you see it in Kickstarter, and so I'm not suggesting that everyone's going to go that way, but you just see that the platforms for artists to get their work read and sold and in the hands of fans is growing, and that is only a good thing. I mean, that really only, at the end of the day, I mean, I can only be worried about myself, that no one else is paying my bills. I'm paying my bills, so I have to watch my own ass. And so if there's other avenues to get my stuff out there, I'm going to explore them. You certainly can't stick your head in the sand and say, well, my book has to be on a shelf and be sold through Diamond, or, it doesn't count, kind of thing, is a terrible attitude.
Yeah, totally.
And another question, guys, just about working digitally and the approach of being an independent factor in the way that you produce art, i.e. original art being an important revenue stream. Because it can be, for sure. Obviously, we sell quite a bit of it, but I guess part of that too is, and this is just me adding to this question of Ryan's, is that you hear a lot about writing for the splash page these days. Because of that original art, that attractiveness of pages. And I don't think either of you do that at all. Writing to sell original art, but just doing originals, and how does that factor into your decision making versus going digital for and if you do work digital at all, Al?
In terms of money making, it did cross my mind, but it was just like a supplemental argument why not turning digital. It never was a reason why not turning digital. But I was like, oh, plus if I sell one day, at least it would be possible. But yeah, to me it was, I never was attracted by digital, because with digital there's this un filet de sécurité, un security net.
Net. Safety net.
Safety net. And I like the idea of because it's scary to draw. Drawing is really scary, and you don't want to make mistakes. You want to think you're good. So when you do digitally, you're dealing less with that. I feel, in a way, I deal less with that aspect, and I wanted to be violent with myself, to be confident and not be scared. And so for that, I needed to draw traditionally, you make mistakes and you have to correct them, and so that's why I feel like I'm more. I'm sure there's a lot of great digital artists. There is, actually, but I wouldn't be a good digital artist. I would.
Well, and I think too that with this move towards digital, and some artists now are at a point where that's all they've learned to do is work digitally. And I mean, digital is great. It certainly can speed up the process a lot. But I would also challenge, digital artists to also, hopefully that they are drawing on paper, even if it's in their sketchbooks or whatever it is. Because I think that, the traditional way of approaching art, like Al said, where mistakes happen and you have to fix them in a traditional way rather than, just the undo button. You either work with what you have and adapt it, or it's like you bite the bullet and you use some whiteout, or, however you're going to do it. And then, if you're using something to correct it like whiteout, then it exists. It's there still. Everyone will see that is part of the whole. And I think that it inform you digitally, working digitally, that making a decision instead of just going back and trying new thing. It's like, put a line down and let it exist, and then see where the next line exists in conjunction with that original line, instead of back and forth. And it's until you have this perfect image. It's nice to see the lumps and the bruises and everything else in artwork. Nothing is perfect.
Yeah, totally. I think you can actually play with your mind more. But I find like I don't know if you ever read about Moebius techniques. Like I was
What?
really Moebius, Jean Giraud. It really
Oh,
liberated
yeah.
me when I read about it. Is the difference? There's this interview when they ask him what's the difference between Jean Giraud and Moebius, and it's like Jean Giraud is like really, really, really tight drawing, but like you draw with a brush and it's like it's more movement, and like he loses the quality of his drawing in terms of structure, but then he gains expressivity. And so but it works because he had a really tight drawing under it, while when he does Moebius he has a very rough drawing, and he uses like a nib and he's really straight, and he does one straight line and that's the line, you cannot change it. So it's a bit more goofy sometimes, but it has more inventive forms that you've
Yeah.
never seen before. So I couldn't say it's exactly that I do, but like it kind of like that. There's decisions that are like that when I draw. I'm like, oh, how do I deal with that shape? And I find solutions like that. While on a computer, I don't live any of those thoughts. Any thoughts about drawing, I don't have them on a computer. I'm not saying it's not drawing. I'm just saying like there's not this dealing of mistakes and inking and drawing. There's this dealing, it doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
like,
Well,
I wouldn't be able to do it.
it's like jumping out of an airplane when you're drawing on paper and you don't have a parachute. You know,
Yeah.
but if you're working digitally, you have them everywhere. You know, you get them strapped all over the place, and you know, there certainly are digital artists who you can't tell they're working digitally. You know, they've just adapted the style that they learned traditionally and brought it over.
Yeah.
You know, to the Cintiq. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing digital artists because
I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
like,
it's a wonderful tool, but you know, there's a lot of times where you know they're using a lot of the same brushes, and so there's sort of a sameness to some work, you know, from different artists where it's like you can't really separate it. You don't really, you know, you're not zoning into an image and go, well, that's them exactly. And it's like, you know, there's people that kind of draw very similar, and it's hard to sort of discern who's who as a result of it. And so that's why I'd suggest, even if you're just sketching in your sketchbooks and sort of having that tactile feeling, because there's nothing like drawing on paper. I love it. Like it's like I draw so I can ink. Like I love inking. Like that to me, everything I do is so I can ink.
Yeah, when there's that in your work, we can tell you love ink. Like, so much love in every line, and there's
so obsessive. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I love it. I love. So like, for instance, that recent Hulk piece, like that was just, I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I was working on that, I can't remember the monster on the right, the big one. And I was like, well, he needs to be prominent. Like he needs to frame the Hulk. So, you know, that idea of putting all that dark shadow in the back, I didn't know how to do it. I just figured it out as I went. And, you know, that guy took me 3 days to ink. And if I fucked it up on the second day, you know, I'd have gone and started over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I like that aspect of drawing too. Like, I like to prepare, but I like also not prepare. Like the two together can make like really nice surprise. And yeah, it's like there's a automatic aspect in drawing that's like really fun. Like you want some surprise now and then for yourself. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? Like, I mean, I love those moments where you put something down and you're like, oh, that's amazing. Like you didn't even think of it. It just happened.
Yeah.
Like
totally.
those are the moments you live for as an artist. Anyway, I do anyways. It's just like, oh, this is great. And then it takes you off in a whole new thing that you weren't even thinking of like a minute before.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be able to take risk. Otherwise you won't find new shapes and new lines, and like that's what happened to me on digital. Like I wouldn't take as many risks. I'm sure there are a lot of people who do take risks on digital, so I'm gonna stop saying that about digital. But
yeah, because it's a wonderful tool. It's an amazing tool, and I mean, you color digitally, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not like But and it's funny because like Alexis, like looking at your book, you know, it's almost like in a lot of places you're just using sort of 2 colors or 3 colors. You're like using like kind of a pink and a yellow, and then there's some brown, and So what's the thought of, getting back to your process, what's the thought in your color? Because obviously if you're printing 3-color, you could do full color, but you're choosing to use a limited palette for yourself.
I don't know what thought I had behind that. Ultimately, yeah, I don't know. I just happened. It was like it was looking sexy, and I was like,
just gonna roll with it.
Yeah, exactly.
So on your new book, so when you're thinking about color, do you wait till you're done? Do you have you started coloring any of the 140 pages that are done, or?
Actually, this book is gonna be in black and white.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There'll be some gray tones, maybe. I don't know, but
I love that because I think that there's going to be a return to black and white comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to make a bit of a comeback. Not like they did in the 80s and 90s. I don't think we'll ever be there again. But I think that a lot of people who read, because that was sort of my era of reading comics. Like I got swept up in that black and white craze, and you see more and more artists like Ed Piskor with his new book is doing it's in black and white. I mean, he's using the duo shade method, but I mean he's recreating that digitally, but I mean it is black and white. And you see more artists, like the one thing I'm working on, I'm considering it black and white and maybe one color. And there's just something to a black and white image where once again then you have to think about depth and focus in a different way because you can't rely on color, as you're out for something like that. So,
well, when I did Dark Angel of Darkness, I was thinking about colors the whole time. To answer your earlier question, but I wasn't doing the card at the same process. I did all the colors at the end, but I still had in my mind like, oh, this image would work because it would be yellow there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had like hundreds of colors, I would have taken notes or something. But yeah, I just had like 3 colors. So,
and so like when you're planning ahead, so like with the new book being in black and white, is it with the same publisher?
Yeah.
Same publisher. Someone had asked that earlier, so I meant to bring that up. But when you're working in black and white, and even with your sort of limited palette, you sort of have different options for paper stock. Obviously, too, if something's black and white, you have a lot of options for paper stock because you don't have to worry about paper basically draining all the color out of a project. And so are you really that involved and cognizant of how the final project is going to look when it's published? Like, do you get to choose your paper stock?
I hope so. I try to each time, like for the English and the French version of the Dark Angel of Darkness, like I had like a lot of discussion about that. Yeah, I'm kind of a book geek too. Like I like certain papers and I would like it to have it like an old manga. So can you see a bit through the pages like newspaper?
Yeah.
I want it to like tick and like falling in your hand. Like I want it to like not hold,
It's funny because a publisher is like, why would you do that? Why would you choose such paper?
Yeah.
So is it Piao? Is that how it's pronounced?
Yeah, Piao Studio. Yeah.
So where are they based? Where are they out?
They're in Sweden.
Oh, okay. So
Stockholm.
They're it's like where all the cool people are doing comics now, is with them. I was kind of laughing. It's like, well, I don't think probably had no interest in me whatsoever. I'm 48-year-old.
I didn't know them when they contacted me. I was like, who are these guys? Why do they care about me? But like then I realized like I was following half their artists already. So
yeah.
So I guess I fit there or something.
You do, yeah. And so has it done well for you, like just in terms of outreach, or like people obviously reading it? I know we're not supposed to read reviews, but we all do.
Yeah, well, I was pretty happy with my reviews, and Yeah, like it's fun to have a discussion like where people see your things. Like yeah, like there were things I couldn't like have expect. Like they were comparing me to books that I never heard of. But I was like, but like it's interesting to see that like there's a connection with stuff I don't know. But
Oh well, like do you remember? Like, was there someone was
yeah, JoJo Bizarre Adventure.
what was it? Sorry.
JoJo Bizarre Adventure, is that the name?
Oh yeah, it's a really weird manga.
Yeah,
And
they compare me to that.
I think when people make comparisons and they're way off, they they sort of find one connecting kernel and they just run with it. And so JoJo is just really weird. So that was
Yeah, I
probably
want it is, it's really
yeah. So that was probably their connecting kernel there. I mean, other than that aspect of it, I don't really see much of a connection. But like, are you a big manga guy? Do
okay.
you read a lot of?
So you wouldn't agree? Okay.
No. I see more like someone had mentioned earlier on the thread. I apologize. So it was like they see a lot of 80s cartoons in this, and I do see that for sure. A lot of 80s animation.
Yeah.
Were you a big cartoon kid growing up?
Yeah, but me, I'm born in '89, so the cartoon I watched were from the '90s. But I do love the '80s. But I got to discover them later on.
So what were you watching
yeah.
then when you're so what was big in the 90s? What was coming out in the 90s?
Well, I'm from Drummondville, and it's like it speaks French there, and it's not. And France were really into anime, but not Quebec. So ultimately, I got Dragon Ball,
Yeah.
and Batman. That was it.
Oh. Well, those are some very contrasting influences for sure.
Well, I see all of them in my work now, so
yeah. So like, listen. So Cam brought up an image, and this is great to sort of talk about your approach with something like this, and like you sort of using your color choices to create focus. You know, essentially choosing sort of a really bold color, not used anywhere else, but in the middle background, which just pushes you into this conflict in the foreground, with these characters. And I love how you really mess with proportions and sizes, and you're just free to do whatever you want. Like where's that coming from with you? Like, is it just such a real natural thing when you're doing this?
Yeah, well, how can I answer that simple? There's a lot of influence, and it's my whole life of influences that end up in that drawing, So, but ultimately, when I was like a teenager, I was in this French forum called Café Salé, and it was like the deviant art for French people, and like all the kids that were on that forum were going to Gobelin, the animation school in Paris.
Oh wow! Okay.
And these kids were having really strong loose drawings. Like they were all really good animators. So I was mainly influenced by this kind of drawing when I was like end of my teenagehood. And yeah, they were allowing themselves to do shapes that are like still strong and volumic, but like getting out of like what's normal and conventional.
Yeah.
So that always stuck with me. But I wasn't that good at drawing at that age, so I was just pretty much having loose drawing, not good, strong drawing that are loose. And so eventually I started to be more conventional and conservative in terms of learning how to draw. But yes, now and then sometime I do a drawing that's more loose because it's kind of always in my work, that looseness, but some are more loose than other. That one is one of my loose ones. Yeah, I really like the Frankenstein guy. I like it.
Yeah, he's awesome. And this was just to do. You were just screwing around. There wasn't any.
Yeah, actually, I was trying to find the vibe for my comic I'm doing right now, the Backstab, which will be called Dark Oasis. I changed the name, but
okay.
But yeah, I was trying to I wanted to build this jazz boxing world with vampires, kind of like yeah.
That's awesome. That's so right up my alley.
Yeah. I'll do this with Frankenstein.
Yes. Well, this is, I mean, and I'm glad that I never lost my enthusiasm through all the years of making this stuff to still read stuff. And I mean, I think my focus has narrowed in terms of what I do take in, but like when I see stuff that I really like your work, like I really like it. And it's the same like with Alexis and artists. Like I said, I really appreciate artists who are really doing their own thing. And you know, maybe you see their influences, maybe you don't. But at the end of the day, it's all just really uniquely their own thing, which is you know, in leaps and bounds. It's really great.
Thank you.
I gotta ask Al. A lot of those illustrations, some that we were offering, it was all centered around orcs. What's up with the orcs?
Yeah. I love orcs. Well, orcs for me are like, well, just visually, they're so like strong and manly and rough. They're like rock and roll. They're like Motley Crue or something. They're like Danzig. So all that stuff.
They're Motorhead.
Yeah, they're Motorheads. So I really like that part. And what else? Well, also I was really big into Ralph Bakshi during my teenagehood.
That makes sense.
It makes sense, right? And so all the colors of Ralph Bakshi really influenced me, and the shapes too. They're kind of loose shapes, so also really flat shapes too. I'm trying to actually, my ideal world would be some kind of like more. It would be the Ralph Bakshi orc world, kind of, but like with Motorheads, and that's like my main world. I do other things, but like ultimately, my biggest comics will be a comics of Motorhead orcs.
That's awesome.
Green and red, you know.
What's your Ralph Bakshi movie of choice? What's his, or just work? Like what's the one you love the most?
Well, Ralph Bakshi films, you watch them like when you're stoned, kind of, and at that point you like them all. Like, so I don't really. Yeah, it's not like. They're kind of hard to follow. I don't want to. They're visually very appealing, but they're kind of hard to follow. I guess a cool whale is his most eccentric and complete at the same time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it was probably him doing the most Hollywood movie that he's ever done, like David Lynch doing Elephant Man. You know, it's sort of the most widely sort of friendly movie that they've made. But I mean, Ralph, it's funny because we were talking about the old Spider-Man TV show, the animated show that Ralph did. And
wait, Ralph Bakshi did a Spider-Man animation?
How does no one know this? Yeah, the old when did it come out, in the 60s or whatever? Yeah, that's like the old you know, where he's swinging literally like 10 miles in the air at the beginning. Yeah, that's Ralph Bakshi.
Really, that's Ralph Bakshi. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, his movie, was it just the Lord of the Rings? Like, he didn't do it as a trilogy. I think he sort of did them all in one movie. I'm kind of blanking. I haven't watched it in a long time. But
what, Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, the Lord of the Rings, where he where he did the mocap, and then he sort of would drop colors on, and he really screwed with the contrast, so they were just sort of dark shapes. And I mean, that is trippy. That is so trippy.
Oh, yeah. That blew my mind. That's like half why I draw orcs. Like,
oh yeah.
And I think I see a lot of artists on Instagram. They're like totally got influenced by Wizards and Lord of the Ring and Fire and Ice. Like
Fire and Ice. I was just about to say Fire and Ice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fritz the Cat is really crazy. Did he do Wizards? Did he do that as well? Yeah, he's. I mean, he's still around. I don't know what he's doing now, but probably painting. But
I think he does.
Yeah. But
drunk clowns. Drunk clowns. Yeah.
Yes. Was there anything else you wanted to ask him, or?
No, I think that's probably good. I feel like this conversation could probably go on all night, but I don't mind cutting it off here because it forces Al to come on. And maybe next time Alexis will answer my text and we'll
He
get
said
him
he-
on here too.
He said he was working. I mean, he did disappear a little while ago. So,
Yeah,
but well, he was on here 20 minutes ago. So I don't know how much he was working. Maybe he's watching us as he's drawing, but he should have come on. So
He's just waiting for his moment to pounce
Yeah.
and ridicule. But no, I think that's probably a good.
I
Good
got
time.
one thing, and I did the same with Alexis last time, and thankfully he remembered, but I remembered this time. And I asked Al ahead of time for a book recommendation. It didn't have to be a comic, but just something that maybe not a lot of people know about, but got you really excited, like you really loved.
Yeah, that was hard. I found one, but
Okay.
I hesitated for a long time. I'm pretty sure people, like, maybe a few people know of him. You probably know him, Roy Crane.
Yes.
Yeah, Roy Crane is mostly known for Captain Easy, like the color one that Fantagraphic came out, like
Yeah.
the Sundays, right?
This is funny because I stack my laptop up so it's not looking up my nose, and one of the books.
Oh, it's exactly that book.
that is so funny.
Yeah, like I love everything Roy Crane did, but this book specifically has his best stuff, in my opinion.
Sorry, guys. What's that called? Just so I can type it in the comments. Just so.
It's Hurricane Isle, and it's the best of Captain Easy and Wash Tubs. And so it was a newspaper strip, and so it was a serialized adventure strip, which they don't really do much of anymore. And I mean, he's a beautiful cartoonist, and I've always actually wanted to try something in that style, in a newspaper strip style, and just that takes a lot of planning, I think.
Yeah.
And I just haven't sat down and figured it out yet. But it's really I love it. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah, it's like I really love well, actually it's very funny, and like I tried to read other comic book strip from that era, and I find them less easy to enjoy.
Yeah, but they're kind of serious. Some of them are
they're very serious. Well, this one is like goofing around, but it's not just the writing; it's the drawing. The drawing are really goofy. I'll try to find, like, look at this poster right here. Wait. Just have to find him. I can't find him. Oh, wait. I'm confused. Okay, there you go. This guy right here.
Yeah,
he's got a good pose, you know.
Oh yeah, no, he was amazing. And the thing is, like, he could work super cartoony, but then you look at his ships, you look at his planes, and he would strip away the detail. Like, he wasn't super over rendering stuff, but they're totally on point. Like, he like Al Williamson, like, you know, he could draw planes and stuff like Al Williamson, like that kind of level. And it's amazing, and it looks natural. Like, it looks totally like it should exist in the world.
Wait, like that house.
Yeah. And so, and it's interesting, you know, the sort of the limitations of a newspaper is because, you know, you're continuing the story, but you want to have an arc within the strip, but also leave it on a cliffhanger so you come back for the next strip the next day, but then you start the next strip with how the last strip ended off to remind your readers. Like, the limitations of newspaper strips was crazy. And so, you know, the writers and the artists who could do it well can do it really, really well. I would say I always get really excited talking about old newspaper strips, but
but there's what I first got, like, there's two aspects to it that I really love, and like the second one is the one you're talking about, and now it's the most exciting for me. It's the newspaper structure is inspiring because, like, it forces you to, like, have, like, good small ideas and make them work.
Yeah.
And in Hurricane Isle, like, actually, like, it's about, like, character dynamic again. Like there's, like, how are they gonna goof around and it's gonna be fun for like 3 panels? How are they gonna do that?
Exactly.
So it actually works pretty well. But what attracted me at first too, it was these drawings. I just think like I like its lines are like, because like it's all black and white. There's no tones or colors. So, and its contrasts are perfect all the time. So you realize these lines are not to talk about the drawing, but they're to talk about the composition.
Yeah.
So sometimes design is doing both, and that's the hardest. But like he's really good at like going from one to the other. And
he is, yeah. He was a master of it, and he's not talked about sort of as much as some of the other greats were of that time, and I think it maybe was that because he was sometimes when an artist is so good, people just sort of take him for granted, and because the stories are a little, you know, they're not soft, but they're widely sort of known. Like you know, you sort of understand these structures of these adventure stories. You know, it's not like George Harriman that's doing really wacky, far out, crazy stuff with Crazy Cat, and you know, as a result, has lasted years and years and years in terms of people remembering them. But yeah, there was those few artists who did adventure strips really well, and he was definitely one of them.
yeah, for sure. I discovered him because of Alex stuff. He was the one talking about it. He's pretty much the only person I know that talked about it. Like, it's like he was like, Roy Crane is the guy. It's like, okay, I'll go look it up.
Good. Yeah. It's this, well, and before, because we didn't actually get into sort of what your, so I know we said we're going to wrap up and then we didn't. This is what always happens, Al. What was your, because I'm always interested in like, what was your in, and I asked Alexis this last week too, like, what was the thing where you went from comic fan to like, I want to make comics? What was the thing that pushed you into that? Was there one specific creator or one book?
It's a good question. Trying to think about it a second. Like there must have been a comic that was like, oh, I can do comics too. There must have been one.
It's not always there. Like it took me a while to figure out what mine was too.
Because for a long time I thought I wanted to do animation. I was like, this is gonna be filmed and I'm gonna draw them. Then I realized it was a really bad idea.
But what were you? Because I mean, with living in I mean, even in Drummondville, like, was there good comic shops in Drummondville or?
Yeah, there was one. That's what saved my life, because otherwise I would be, I don't know, I would be working in a golf court or something, being a drunk. No, but there was a comic book store, and that's when I discovered Mike Mignola, John Romita Jr., and Paul Pope. I really got into those three guys when I was a teenager, and yeah, they kind of made me want to do comics. But then I got lost for another 10 years, wondering what I was doing. But
were they also bringing in European stuff as
well?
No,
it's funny because like European comics in Drummondville didn't exist. So
oh wow,
yeah, like I had like Dragon Ball that I could buy at Zellers, and I was trading them at school with other kids that were buying Dragon Ball at Zellers.
Yeah,
and I had the comic book store.
That's hilarious. That is the most un-Quebec story I've ever heard. Buying Dragon Ball at Zellers, but you know, kids are kids at the end of the day, right?
Every kids in Drummondville were reading Dragon Ball because it was the only comic book there was in Drummondville. Dragon Ball. I don't know how it got there, but
that just talks about its reach. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, well, that's probably a good point to end it now. Yeah, I'm glad I remembered the book. That was really funny. That literally it's sitting right here too.
Funny.
Awesome, guys. Well, no, this was greatly appreciated from Troy and Al, and you know, thanks for taking the time out. That was a great chat. I think plenty more insight came this week. It was awesome. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. We'll do this again sometime soon. We've got lots of Troy and Al's work coming up for sale. Some stuff currently for sale. Some announcements happening. So be on the lookout very soon. And yeah, we'll be back live again this Saturday, and next Wednesday it's going to kind of be a regular thing. So any last words from either of you gentlemen?
Al?
Well, it was a real pleasure. It was really interesting to talk with both of you, and it was a great opportunity, and I hope I'm gonna have to do it again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I
You're
do
not
want to
welcome.
ask one final. Do you have sort of a bulk idea of when your book is coming out? Your new book? Any idea?
No, because I'm actually working on 2 short stories right now,
Okay.
and yeah, I really can't tell, but it's probably gonna be next year, but like,
Yeah.
don't know when. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, that's it. That's all. Thanks for everyone who tuned in, and have a good night. We'll see everyone soon.
Thanks.
Cheers. Thank you.